Hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm your host, Mark Graban. Our guest today is Trevor Schade. His career began maybe similar origins or work to what I and a lot of you do is a Lean Six Sigma black belt. He's also got a background in coding, skills he used to consult on business efficiency and outsourcing. But then he entered real estate in 2008, got his license, and quickly built a top performing team of 26 agents with zero turnover. I think we'll end up talking about that today. He scaled his business with the virtual admin team in the Philippines, helping generate over $1 million in commissions. And then in late 2023, Trevor stepped away from running a large team to focus on investing and advising in different ways. So he now speaks on things including negotiation, time freedom, and real estate strategy. And he's launched life wealth courses to help others do the same. So Trevor, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to get into a few things with you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of topics and things that we are going to cover. I'm excited for the conversation, but let's jump right into the main question I know you're prepared to answer. Trevor, what's your favorite mistake?
Yeah. So I spent some time thinking about this and it's a list. It's a whole list. So I'll
Right.
get us started somewhere here, but just so the listeners know on the front end, it's completely exactly what you hear so many times over and over. The person that fails the most wins the most. You also failed the most. So I'm like, man, I've done so many things that seemed like good ideas and seemed like right paths and right places to step. But really, if somebody wants a broad brush stroke,
Mhm.
taking the first step is should be all of our favorite mistakes in a little bit, like just get in motion. Specifically, my true story, one of the biggest, best mistakes that I made when I was 19, I got involved in a multi-level marketing company. And up to that point, I had been very linear thinking. I'm writing computer code since fifth grade, learned some coding languages, did the whole late 90s self-taught HTML
Oh,
on
right.
all the little website designs, right? So did that. And I have an intuition of people, but I was and am I'm very literal and a little strangely oddball rigid. And so when it comes to interpersonal sales or depth of connectivity and all of those, that was not where I was at when I was 19. And so I got into multi-level marketing and I just had some good mentors that really promoted some books. And
Mhm.
up to that point, I had bought every term paper. I had paid people to read books for me. What was it? Cliff's Notes. Remember Cliff's Notes?
Oh, yeah.
That was my MO. And so all of a sudden, when had somebody hand me a couple of books that were on how people think, how people decision make, how people really interpret the world, now I could take this very analytical approach to relationships. And so I spent the next 8 years doing this multi-level marketing business and growing and states and people and the getting involved in that business from a true P&L, like how I've now learned in business to actually just put the business under the pressure and see, is it profitable or is it not? It was not a profitable business, but I went 8 years with never once not reading before going to sleep. That
Mhm.
was the line in the sand I drew. And some of you think that's impossible. Okay, pull some parameters, and some of the listeners can go, what about when you're traveling in some weird obscure hotel or whatever, some business trip, something? I made sure to read the menu. I
Mhm.
made sure that I never broke the discipline of reading before bed. And in 8 years, I didn't do that. And so then I made it through hundreds of books. I understood psychology and preferences and that people aren't wrong. They just prefer different things.
Yeah.
And so that was probably an incredibly monumental mistake because it wasn't a profitable business.
Oh, sorry.
It
Finish.
no, but it turned into something amazing. Go ahead. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is it just was it not the best use of your time in terms of the most profitable, or you're
Um,
saying not profitable, but
yeah.
you decided, okay, it was time to find something. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would call it was not a financially profitable business. So let's put that in there because for my education, I got exposed to and I got to learn from some of the greatest minds that have ever spoke and written books. And I got to study, I mean, all the way to Dale Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think I've read that 7 or 8 times now. And then in the real estate community, they call it the Purple Bible. And you've got Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and endless books about about success, about mentality, about zoomed out long-term ways of thinking. And so incredibly, immeasurably profitable, but not financially. Financially, I didn't know what businesses were possible. I didn't know how to flip a house with absolutely zero of my own money. I had no idea how to analyze that, find that. I didn't know how to negotiate. I didn't know how to get people to do favors. All of that bending of the rules and getting preferential treatment. I learned that all from these books through that mistake of a business choice.
Yeah. It sounds clear when we're talking about I'm going to be oddball rigid and say literally, because I recognize myself in that phrase. Profit means financially, but
Right.
I think what I hear you saying is there were other benefits
Yes.
that
Yes.
sets the stage
Yeah.
for your next steps.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I want to make sure for all the listeners that you've got going on here that anyone that was that oddball rigid like us, yes, financially, bad business choice. There are so many better businesses, but I honestly don't know of any other businesses that would have inundated my brain with that many books and that much requirement and that much growth and learning in such a time. Do I have to chalk it up to a win? Yes. But financially, should someone just find a better mentor and do a different financially positive business? Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned starting that when you were a teenager. Did you go to college, or was that work in that reading your education?
Yeah, I went to college. I actually walked onto the Nebraska Huskers football team, and I
What
didn't.
position? Sorry.
That's all right. Rush in, defensive end.
Okay.
I'm 6'5". I was 235 pounds and 9% body fat and crazy fast back then.
Yeah.
And none of those stats are true to this day. But back then it was good news. And I was, again, it's probably that oddball thing about me. I couldn't understand that was a big deal. And so here I was, a walk-on freshman, redshirt freshman. And it was probably only 2 or 3 years later that someone goes, Trevor, you're a math person. Okay. How many humans are on the sidelines during the game? Like as the football players? And I gave a ballpark estimate and they said, okay, how many people are in the stands? 80,000 or whatever it is. And they were like, would you do the ratio there, math person? Now, is it a big deal? Is that unique? And I was like, oh, that is a very small crowd. And I didn't understand what that would turn into with network and opportunities, partnerships, other people wanting to do business things together, other creatives in college that would then go, hey, why don't we start something together? I just didn't understand the incredible value. So to answer your question, I left college after a year and I left the football team. I walked away from everything. And because I started a multi-level marketing business and I had this life licked and I didn't need any of that formal academia, masses, typical education. And I may still have some of those beliefs to this day that someone can learn the lessons and go through the business and you're going to get a different and even possibly better, quote unquote, education through the hard knocks of life and business and all of that. But you'll never be able to get that network. You'll never be able to link up with those people that also have equal ambitions and want to go places in life together. That's pretty unmatched, in my opinion.
And that must be so powerful in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah.
Nebraska football is such a dominant part of not just the sports landscape, but I have a couple of friends who graduated from University of Nebraska. So it's the second hand and just being part of the Big Ten. Welcome to the Big Ten. Were you in the Big Ten or still in the Big 12?
No, it was the 12. Yeah, it was back in 2000. Got to go to the Alamo Bowl. Yeah, I know the listeners are dying to know it's Solich's second year. That was the year I played. Yeah.
So I've got a different end helmet, not to get too sidetracked.
No,
Northwestern Wildcats.
yes, that's who it was.
You crushed my team in that movie.
That was it. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I've got this cool jersey that has my name on the back and all the embroidered things. And everybody I know my company is, they're like, get that in one of those glass frames and hang it on our wall. And I'm like, I don't know. I just never have. But yes, that is the truth.
Okay, I'm gonna need a second to recover from that because it was something like 66 to
Yeah.
17 was
Yeah.
heartbreaking. Did you get on the field in that
No,
game? You know, putting the walk-ons in or
no, they didn't even let us on the field because it was a travel game, but it
okay.
was probably only like 25% of us or so got to even go on the
Mhm,
travel and go down
mhm.
there, and I was one of them. I got to go down and get pummeled by the starting O-line for warm-ups. Yes.
Well, okay, so 25 years later, I can say, "Good for you. Good
Well,
for you." That is okay, small world.
yes.
I was there. I was one of those maybe almost 60,000 people in the
Yeah.
stands because I was a marching band,
Oh, yeah.
uh, guy, drummer, not a football player. But
Yeah.
so I'm sure you pay attention to what's happened in recent years.
Mm,
The whole name, image, and likeness approach was happening. You could have stayed in school and pursued
mhm.
business opportunities that
Yeah.
really just weren't allowed for a student athlete, right?
Yeah, there's a lot that yeah, right now with what people can do, you can make your entire lifestyle by being an entertainment figure through sports. You can make unreal money and have all of these life choices. And yeah, at the time there were the NCAA regulations that didn't allow it, but yeah, it was an incredible opportunity, and that I've got nothing but positive to say out of it, other than
Sure.
I wish I would have just continued the remaining 4 years.
Mhm.
In fact,
Mhm.
I almost went back as I turned 33, 32, 33. I went through an entire total life implosion. And during that,
Mhm.
I went through a divorce. I had
Mhm.
my real estate investments had bed bugs, and I started looking at financial bankruptcy. I got laid off from all of the careers and jobs that were in the business consulting world. I was 100% commission. In the divorce, I ended up with a custody battle. Like I had all of the,
Mhm.
a good close grandparent died in hospice, like all of this all
Oh
at once.
gosh.
And the stress and strain on my body caused a torn artery in my neck during a
Mhm.
chiropractic adjustment. And I had a TIA stroke and half my body shut off. And that was finally the deciding factor that I wasn't going to go try to walk back on. But I had already started P90X again and diving back. Like I could just go play my four last eligible years. And so I was entertaining it, but I just don't think anybody's ever going to sign off on someone, even that comes out of it unscathed, a TIA blown artery stroke victim, to go throw a college helmet
I
back on.
I had read recently about a young woman in her 20s who died
Mhm.
from that same mishap during
Yeah.
a chiropractic
Yeah.
adjustment. I'm glad it seems fully recovered
Yeah. Yep. Fully
from that.
recovered. All good. Yep. And I'm still, 'cause I know there's some chiropractors
Well,
listening to your show here. And I'm like, for the record, I am still a huge fan of chiropractic. Just so that everybody, like, the flexibility, it's like what you get from yoga, all kinds of goodness. Am I personally ever going to have my neck adjusted again? No, I don't think so. But everything else that leads up to it, the foundation and all of that, I'm still a huge proponent. And my chiropractic doctor, he is a great guy, and he came to the hospital and he was so concerned. And he's even more of a physical therapist. So, for the record of the
okay.
podcast here,
We're
we are not bashing anyone.
we're not counting that as a mistake. And I
No,
appreciate your openness
yeah, for sure.
in sharing some highs and lows even so far into our conversation here. To close the loop a little bit on that first phase of your work and the multi-level marketing company, were there times within those 8 years where you thought of getting out of it? Was it a mistake sticking with it so long, or you got continued learning and continued foundation for what came next?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would really adamantly say, and I think I saw this with some of my peers that were building these businesses alongside me. I think a lot of us stayed at it about 2 years too long. That
Mhm.
was where we knew we were at the end and this was done and we should move on. But because we had integrated it into our whole life and all of our relationships and our credibility and our identity, and now our egos on the line, now it took 2 years to unravel and unweave that. I really did keep learning the whole way through. It actually set up a new business principle that I now teach. I am not able to quote unquote set goals properly and effectively. Many people are. I would say most are. So somebody hears you have to write your goals down, you have to speak them out loud, you got to tell someone else so you have some accountability. I would say absolutely 100%. Now there's a small group that takes it too far. And we put the blinders on to such an extent that you will blow 8 years of your life out of the water by running in the same direction because it takes hard work and focus. And you can lock in so outrageously that you implement 100% of what you go to a conference and hear when they're expecting you to take 2 items away. And then you run in this direction. And what I had to do is I had to stop setting goals and I had to start setting trajectories. And that's how my
Hmm.
brain could do it, because what that required me to do is think like navigating an ocean. I could point in a trajectory and I could run blind and hard to the point that I had set, like the number of months that I had set in advance of how long I'm going to give myself to run in that direction, so that I can stop, decide if I need to adjust course, and then sprint hard in another trajectory. And so that's what came out of the second half of that multi-level marketing era
Mhm.
was, I had the blinders on like you should and is required to redline at times, but I needed a measure point. I needed a time to
Mhm.
stop, look around, pull the true P&Ls, be honest and ugly about the numbers, and make decisions so that I could put the blinders back on in a better direction.
Interesting. Yeah. Earlier on, and I don't know if I jotted this down correctly, you said something to the effect of having the most failures leads to the most, did you use the word the most success or
I,
something similar?
yeah,
Do you remember how you said that? You
yeah, I did say success. Yeah, that's
okay.
exactly right. And obviously, with our odd perfection or odd intensity or odd what success is defined by each person, but still
Yeah.
definitely the word success. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Is oddball rigid?
rigid. When,
Yeah, rigidly oddball or how
yep.
you might. But I wanted to ask. I think being able to view and live the idea that failures lead to success. The word resiliency comes to mind, and I've loved having athletes on the show because they talk about the lessons learned from sports. And you must have been good at football in high school to even walk on at
Yep.
Nebraska. Do you think to what extent did playing football or other sports teach you this ability to bounce back?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a complete and total ingraining since childhood backdrop for why I could just lock in and focus and push. The number of times in sports that I was in martial arts growing up and we would sit in a horse stance and you would get to find out what you were capable of. And you got this new lesson and learning of, is your will stronger than your quads?
Yeah.
And it was lessons like that. And then in football, when you were running more wind sprints and trucking and you had all this heavy gear on, and it was in the Midwest and 98 degrees out plus heat index on 2-a-days, and you're running and you can taste the iron in your own blood from your wheezing, and
Mhm.
you just keep putting a foot in front of the other one anyway. And you think it might be the best format that I've learned and have been experienced to really test and learn what you're capable of. There's probably
Yeah.
some out there that are even more. You go into Navy SEAL training and things like that. And I bet that's the same thing, but on a whole nother level and another gear.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the sports and the sports training, and I do the team aspect of it too, because I think as humans, we will always quit on ourselves before we will quit on another person.
Yeah.
And so having a team that you're going to fail if you quit, I think that really teaches us, it taught me how to push beyond what I, in my own mind, was capable of.
So then I'm curious how you got into Lean Six Sigma, and this is not the martial arts thing,
Yeah.
being a black belt.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. Different. Yeah.
black belt? How did you get into that? Because I think that is a discipline, Lean Six Sigma, that attracts people that are maybe oddball rigid because
Yeah.
we're looking analytically. Yes, we're engaging people. I think it should be a team sport, this kind of workplace improvement, but you're looking at, trying reducing variation, standardizing things, improving things.
Yeah.
I think you have to be a little bit oddball rigid.
I do too. Yeah. I think most of the folks that I've met in the continuous improvement program that are in those sectors of either agile or certainly lean
Mhm.
and Six Sigma the most. Yeah. I think they're all a little oddball rigid and they need to be. Yeah, so to define it loosely for anyone listening that doesn't know, lean is one process system of continuous improvement or process improvement that it basically cuts away the fat, right? It makes everything more efficient. And you can either have somewhere between 8 and 11 types of waste. And so you just start eliminating them, or you start automating them or fixing them. And all of a sudden things run really fast, really smooth without having to have a ton of resources.
And I'm going to jump in and add,
Yeah.
and better quality is part of that.
Absolutely.
Goes
Yeah.
hand in.
More consistency. That's right. Okay. Then we cross into Six Sigma. So my certification is both of those together, but Six Sigma. So this is where you need a ton of data, and you need to have more than 99% success. The example I use is, if you only successfully landed airplanes 99% of the time, that's not good enough.
Why?
No, that's not good enough. You need 99.79s and a 6 after that in order for it to be good enough. And so that's what Six Sigma does, is it goes, okay, how's the process supposed to run? How often does it not run that way, one way or the other? And when it doesn't run the way it's supposed to, how far off is it? And so that's Six Sigma. I have not been able to employ that with many companies and many people. Lean is typically where I live and breathe. So anyway, so there's our definitions for what we're doing. But yeah, as I got into that, it was, since I'd been writing computer code, and while I was running a multi-level marketing business, I had some consulting gigs and jobs and companies, and I was at an insurance company for about 9 years in various departments. And as I went through their different departments, I would work on databases and relational databases and data sets and queries and reports and reporting and all of those kind of tools for the business operations folks to pull information out of their system and make business decisions on. In there, they offered a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. And as I went through that in-house, I realized there's another layer, and then I could have the full certification. I found an institute outside and pursued it and did it. So now I could have the education and the tools at my disposal. And I employ a lot of what I learned, even in my own businesses. I
was going to
outsource.
ask you that.
Yeah, I really do. I outsource to the Philippines and to India and to anywhere. And man, I've now learned I've put kids through college in these countries, and I had no idea. And I've seen pictures, and they were like, I couldn't afford to pay people to go through college, but I can now since I've connected with you. And so that's been really great. And all of my systems, now I'm a programmer, so I use automation tools like Zapier and API Nation. And I have all these funnels and flows and things that happen. And it really grew from sure a coding brain into the Lean Six Sigma teachings and methodologies, into, I blended all of that backwards into the multi-level marketing psychology teaching. And I realized, if I am able to inspire people, I don't have to have reports, and I don't have to have holding them accountable to certain KPIs or key performance indicators. And I didn't have to be as hard. I keep some of those, but I was able to reduce 90% of those, because we have all been neurotic at one point in our life about some class, some project, some paper that it's midnight. We've already exceeded expectations. We've already hit all of the requirements of what we got to turn into some professor or teacher. And we're still trucking because we're excited about it, and we're going nuts until 3 a.m. And we have this amazing, incredible thing, even a science project back in grade school. And so I thought, well, if I apply that to business, I have all of this knowledge, and I think it's worth implementing, and I do. But then that culture creation, and how do you get people to just want to outperform themselves and be excited and enthusiastic and inspired? And all of a sudden, as a business owner, runner, manager, you take the workload off of your own, and you take the pressure off the relationship.
Yeah. And I've heard one definition of leadership. It's not the only one or the best one, but one definition that was something like, leaders inspire people to do things they might not have thought possible otherwise, or might not have initially wanted to do for different reasons. And maybe it was fear of failure, and leaders hope there's that inspiration piece. So I hear you touching on, but I want to come back to a phrase I jotted down when we had talked previously. You talked about being a leader and inspiring people instead of beating people over the head with metrics.
That's it.
I want to hear more about that, because sales is so metrics driven. Hit your number, set a target, hit your number. If not, you're out, or we're going to reward you for better. Lack of reward is a punishment for not hitting those numbers. Can you talk about you want to talk about that like in the sales context
Yeah.
or in just more generally?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, when it comes to, so I ran a team of 26 real estate agents within our brokerage. I'm not the broker, but I basically set up a mini brokerage inside of it and had all of my systems and support and automations and all of that. Well, see, when it came to the folks joining the team, the thing I wanted to focus on first and foremost was a feeling and a sense of belonging. And I wanted people to understand that they had a place and they were welcome and wanted to be here. And
Mm,
so all of that's that softer stuff. That's that atmosphere design, the feel and sound of the conversations. A feedback loop is one of the things that I was taught in Lean and Six Sigma. So I needed it to be so safe that people could speak in front of other people or directly to
yeah,
me. And
yeah,
that is missed so much. And so as I built that in the real estate sales team, we could really get some momentum. One of the really, again, one of my favorite mistakes that went incredibly well, as I set this team up, we were a team of myself and 5, 6 agents or so. And we're in our first year and a half. None of them hit their sales goals because they were with me for the first calendar year while I was building all the systems. I found myself at no lines of credit available, plus $108,000 in credit card debt. Winter months are pretty rough in the Midwest for real estate sales. And it was February of 2017, I believe it was, maybe 18. And I said, guys, hey, your sales incentive program of me paying for your team trip, or I'm going to pay whatever percentage of your sales goal you hit, I'm going to pay for that. I just appreciate you all being with me. And I think you would have hit your goals if I would have had the system set up. So
mm,
an ultimate accountability, not asked for, not needed. None of them would have left. It was all going to be fine. And I said, so what I'm going to do is pay for all of you to come to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico, airfare. If you want to bring your spouse, you pay for that. But I got you, I got everything, and we're going to go do this. And we got there, and I didn't realize this, but that became the glue and the
mm,
reason that everybody became friends and bonded. I had one dinner that everybody was required to come to together while we were down there for 5 days. Everything else was at their own leisure. Enjoy their vacation. If they needed a breather, raising kids, they could go just take a breather. If they needed an
sure,
action party style in the pool, they could, like whatever everybody wanted. We only had one dinner that we all did
yeah,
together. When we came back, that became like the OG crew. And it turned into, from the day we started that company to 5 years later, we went from 0 agents to 26 agents with absolutely 0 turnover. Nobody didn't renew their license. Nobody switched teams. Nobody switched brokerages. None of our support staff left. Nobody ever did, because we would do these really incredible things together that were just real and authentic and bonding and fun. So that was certainly one of my largest accidents that I did really, and it turned into that culture creation, and I got to see how that played into
mm,
less work for me, less retraining and less replacing, which I knew was the biggest use of my time. And I'm the higher list hourly rate person, right? My earning ability time is worth the most. So we definitely don't want me retraining anybody. And so anyway, that created the culture and the bond. And then back to your question. I'm sorry, I went off on a kind of a tangent to get back here.
it's all right.
So to get everybody bonded, that was the inspiration component. Now I could have the metrics, and I did have a dashboard that showed everybody their sales so that everybody could play the competing game with the TV that was in the office at the room. And it was fun. And I'm not even competitive, and which is odd for all of my background, but I do not
Yeah,
have, my sister runs a Gallup strengths coaching business in Dallas, and competition is one of those strengths. Super low on me. I don't like the game of competing. I always think somebody's softy heartstrings always loses. So even though I don't have that, I would feel the pull. I'd look at that dashboard and see my name and be like, if I go sell 2 more houses, I pass them. That would be fun. That'd be funny. Or, ooh, they're on my heels with one more sale and I'm going to drop a spot. And so I had metrics that were visual and fun and enjoyable. And I would ask people when they came to me about, I'm not happy with my sales. Now we would go through it. What I would do different, I think this worked great up to about 8 agents. And right there, I needed to now have more of a prime real estate company that would be more of a, hey, we're profitable, we're sought after. We are what people are at home begging to find because we were honest and real and authentic, but also so skilled in negotiating for them and skills that they didn't have. We need to make sure that everybody that is part of what we are and who we are, we were the exclusive listings group and we needed to be the exclusive listings group. And I didn't make that shift and pivot. I didn't even realize that I should have until we we're over 20 agents big. And then I got that lesson learned through there that to say, hey, your stats and your sales, one metric, your sales, your closings are not what they need to be the brand that we are. Do you got this under control? And from there, they start telling me which metrics and which reports we need to dive into and talk about. I didn't have to just beat them over the head with the metrics and with the stats and how many calls did you make? Because now everybody lies in the meeting. I've been in those meetings.
Or they start gaming the system.
That's right.
That's natural human behavior. If you're under pressure to hit a number, you'll do things to hit the number that aren't
That's
really
right.
helping the business.
Ultimately, we need a closing because that's a commission check. And we also need a closing without you reducing numbers or fees or doing something. So now again, we're not making any money and you're not making any money. Like that's a toilet bowl spin of a business. It's going to go under no matter what at some point. It's just a matter of how long. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised when you said you're not highly competitive.
I know it.
I'm picturing now, like whether it was Coach Solich or more likely a position coach yelling at you, "Shit, you don't want to win hard. You're not, you don't have the killer instinct, blah, 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 that you would expect in a high level team."
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. That's how it was.
Yeah.
And my sons are the same way now. I have 2 sons and they're 14 and 16. And my 16-year-old, he plays football now in high school. He's going into sophomore year. And same thing. If a coach yells, he responds negatively. He shuts down. He goes, I'll just let you finish yelling. And when you want to talk to me like an adult and a mature human, we'll talk and I'll even put more forth. But until then, I'm going to sit here and just be an equal with you. And I had that attitude even as a kid in grade school and playing and 10 years old. If a coach yelled, I was confused. I had disdain for this immature human in front of me and it didn't work. Now I could all of a sudden go, okay, now that you're done making noise, let me just get back to what I was doing, lock in. I'll take the words of what you said and I'll perform way better and outperform whoever I'm against and I'll perform for my team. But yeah, the yelling, the stereotype, I still to this day do not respond. Now I play with it. Now it's fun. I've studied psychology to the point now that when someone starts going down that road, I just start throwing little trickles of gas because I know which words are really going to set them off. And I don't know. I probably shouldn't toy like that too much, but they're a little entertainment value.
Yeah. I would frame it not as toying with people, but understanding the differences in people. So back to what you were saying earlier, if somebody makes a different choice to buy from a competitor, they're not wrong. They have different preferences. And I think one of the leadership gurus, quality gurus I learned from indirectly through his books, W. Edwards Deming, he talked about how the most important thing, and he was often labeled a statistician. So you think, oh, there we go, Six Sigma. But no, he said the most important thing leaders need to understand is psychology and the differences in the people on their team. And so I admire or I appreciate from a distance when coaches of teams recognize maybe one player does shut down because of the yelling. They need more positive encouragement, pats on the back. And then some players, some people maybe do respond to that more hard-nosed challenge or being negative. And I think you have to appreciate that. You can't treat everybody like they have the same personality because they don't, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mentioned earlier that my sister runs a Gallup strengths coaching business, and she and I have talked about this for 20 years now. That was one of the first books that I read in my psychology dive in my early 20s, and then turned into an entire business for her. And my team on a board, either cycling or written on a marker board, was everybody's strengths. I required everybody that joined the team to do a Gallup strengths. And now everybody could look at that. And we did have one agent on the team, and his number one strength was competition. And before that, everybody thought he was abrasive or being mean, or it was like this gross turnoff. But all of a sudden we realized he enjoys the game of it. It's
Mm,
fun. He
mm,
likes to win. He doesn't really want to lose. And but he needs a worthy adversary. He can't just win and always be winning, because now he's not competing. He's just showing up, and that's boring.
mm.
And
Yeah.
and I would come into the office and almost daily find people standing there staring at that wall, looking and reading other people's strengths and comparing theirs to others. And so I think that education and that awareness, it really changes the team dynamic of how long will people feel heard and feel seen and be
Mhm.
understood? How accommodating and adaptable will everyone else be to learn a different communication style? I went so far as I didn't put the team through this, but in my own mind, I started picking up Myers-Briggs, the love languages,
Mm,
Gallup's strengths,
mhm,
Berkman. I went down this path of probably 7, 8, 9 different facets of
mhm,
temperaments or decision-making models, or under pressure, you then go into this decision-making model. And I started looking at, when someone has that love language with those Gallup strengths, how does that then come out? And it started to really, like you said, it started to share with me, do they want some recognition? Or do they need a bonus? Do they need a Pez dispenser with a dog head on it because they love dogs and they really feel seen and heard? It turned into all these little weird, quirky things that
yeah.
really were customized and customizable to that person. And in some of my courses, when I talk about team creation or motivation and all of that, I feel like some of the listeners at this point would be like, "Oh my goodness, you're a coder? For the love, I'm not a coder. I can't do any of this automation. For the love, you're a psychological crazy like nth degree. I don't have this. I have individualization in my second Gallup strength amplified to the fourth or fifth power because of the following strengths." And someone would be like, I can't. I don't have that." That right there is what my first recommendation for most people in their businesses and in their lives, to go find somebody on Upwork.com and outsource and
Mhm,
find somebody that has that individual strength, gift, and nature. Have them take the test and
mm,
find out, are they an individualization person? Great. Are they a coder? Because the automation that I've set up, even knowing it, there's many times where I was like, man, if this Excel sheet that comes in from this CRM system could just, with one click of a button, automatically transform into the exact layout that I can upload it into Constant Contact, wouldn't that be amazing? I do know how to do these Google Sheets macros, and I know how to do it, but I still went on Upwork and I hired somebody to do it, and I paid them $50 to do it 3 times, and then I kicked them a bonus, and I think I paid them $150 to $200. All the while, they now only required 3 meetings with me of 15 minutes a pop. So I got to give 45 minutes to it instead of 9 to 20 hours of doing it, of what I know how to do. $200, and now endlessly and forever, it all just works. And so I would tell somebody, both with technology and with, when it comes to individualization or hiring or motivating, hire somebody as a consultant.
Yeah. And connecting things back to lean. Lean is not only about outsourcing, but I think there's principle around automating routine work that might be boring. And
Yeah.
then we can focus on work that's more creative, more
Yeah.
fulfilling. That's, I think, in line with lean principles. But I think there's always also this key principle in the work I do in healthcare. We apply it as well, of letting people work to the top of their
Hmm.
ability or their license. So you look,
Yeah.
for example, at nurses. Nurses are very busy. Nurses have important things that only a nurse is allowed and
Yeah.
qualified to do. And then when you have a team get together and look at their work, and it's not even so much what's waste or not, but what's the work you're uniquely qualified to do.
Yeah.
And we see a nurse doing work that could be done by housekeepers, or you
Yeah.
see a nurse dragging a heavy bag of linens down the hallway. For one, they might get hurt, and we
Yep.
don't want anyone to get hurt, but we don't
Yep.
want the nurse to get hurt when housekeeping should be doing that with a cart.
That's right. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean don't be a team player, but don't habitually do work that somebody at a lower pay scale
Yeah.
could or should be doing, not to be a snob about it, but to maximize each
Yeah.
person's potential.
Yes,
That's
I absolutely agree. I actually have an incredibly relevant story. Today, this day, 10 minutes before we jumped on together, I finished writing an offer on a flip property for my 16-year-old son, his very first.
wow.
And he won't do any of the work himself. He is able to analyze and find properties. He's able to call me, his agent, and ask me to write offers and show him the house. He's able to then hire people that are either handymen or licensed electricians or whoever he needs to go pull the permits. He doesn't need to go learn how to pull the permits.
Sure.
Hire people that do. And
Mhm.
like you said, not because of a snob or not because of anything
Mhm.
like that. The tool that I was taught in the Lean Six Sigma was a swim lane diagram, one of my favorites. If someone will just take the time to throw ink on paper on a horizontal sheet of paper and just draw the lanes of who all's in the mix. Yes, the way you said it was just, it's speaking to me.
Yeah.
You have someone perform at the top of what they are able to do. If somebody that is a lesser hourly rate because they don't carry an RN certification, will have that person do it. And now that task is a cheaper task because the cheaper labor is doing it. And an exercise that I recommend everybody do is to calculate their own potential earning hourly rate. If they could get out of their own way, and if all of the distractions of life could get out of their own way, and they could take their full-time salary that they're making, or what is their business genuinely, not crazy, not wish and dream, but what is their business capable of making this year and what they're able to keep, and then divide it by how many hours should you be working? That will turn out a pretty surprising hourly rate number. And I recommend everybody writing that number down for themselves. And anytime there's a task that needs done, I'm not opposed to learning it and doing it once or twice, especially because one of my tricks is to do it once and record the training video and put it on Vimeo. So now I endlessly got to teach how I teach my thought process. I'm
Mhm.
literally doing it one time. And then from there, you always look at that number of your
Mhm.
potential hourly rate number. And if anything isn't worth your time and worthy
Mhm.
of your time, then go find someone that would be stoked about
Yeah.
doing it for their
Mm.
hourly rate.
Delegate it,
Mm,
outsource it. Yeah.
yep,
And you're saying in some cases now with the internet, we can offshore things
yep,
and create opportunities
yep.
for people elsewhere. I love that. Trevor, we are oddball birds of a feather.
That's right. Oddball rigid. That was invented here today, everyone.
Yeah. And even though we were on football fields for different reasons at different times, different purposes, thank you for sharing not just, I think, some powerful stories and reflections. And I'm glad we could have some laughs. And thank you for not rubbing that game in my face
Of course, of
too
course.
much.
Grace.
Gracious.
No problem. It would have been amazing if we'd have crossed paths and been like, I recognize you. That'd have been fantastic. Maybe we even did. Who knows?
I booed you when you were in.
That's so great. I love it. What a small world.
Today, I'm applauding you. Our guest has been Trevor Schade. If you want to learn more about him and his work, his Life Wealth courses, there are links in the show notes, of course. Trevor, this has been really nice. Thank you for being here.
Likewise. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on. This has been a great time.